spike, they've got a real return of this virus, which means that we're going to have to remain cut off from a lot of travel. Does that mean that the airlines will go back in the main to state control because nobody privately can afford to run them? And if that's the case, I suppose we'll have an airline. But when it was privatized in 1980, here, British Airways, it was in dreadful shape. It was a bit like the trains before we had them privatized. You were never quite sure whether anything was going to turn up. There wasn't really much of a schedule. So transportation in the hands of the state doesn't work, but who can afford them? And that goes now for buses and trains and planes and ships, is because of our economic model. If we don't have companies making a profit and able to reinvest, they go belly up. So what's going to happen? What sort of world are we facing? It is very difficult to draw a picture at the moment. And I think that a lot of people have got their head in the sand. Hey, we can go back to the pub. Hey, we can go back to the beaches. Hey, we can do this and we can do that. But I wonder just exactly what's going to happen. We can drive cars. Well, there are problems in the fuel industry. There are problems in the car industry. And anyway, the less cars that are sold, and just about every sector is in a slump because of coronavirus, the less cars that are sold, the more expensive they'll be to manufacture. And most of us are going to have to take a real dive in our revenue, our income. Okay, the filthy rich look as if they'll stay filthy rich. But there aren't many of us in the long run who are really that filthy rich. I wouldn't say well off, but I got a few bob in the bank ahead of Corona. I don't now. I'm having to work very hard. Came very close to disaster because of this. And I think that is a pattern that is emerging all the way around. So how is life going to change? And I don't think that a lot of people have really come to grips with that yet. They can't see that the whole economic model, which the government keeps talking about, and because it talks in its own language about the economy, instead of putting it into plain language. But what it really means is that a lot of the things that government buys and supports financially comes from our taxes. And if we're not working, we don't pay tax. And a lot of us aren't working and have been warned that likely, if we're on furlough or whatever, is that we're not likely to be kept on, even though we're out of lockdown. I can walk into my favourite pub here. There's nobody there. Well, there are a few. I had a nice meal. I sat outside. But that pub would be crowded before lockdown. And now it has a nice steady flow. Indeed, it's the only way that it can operate, of customers. People, I think, are probably staying at home. But if the economy is going to be undermined, where are the taxes going to come from? Well, that's easy. Government just raise taxes. But they can only raise them so much. In the long run, it's the wealth creators who pay taxes. And if the wealth creators are going to slowly disappear, where does our tax money come from? How do we live? What's going to happen to the economic model? Now, perhaps it does need an adjustment, because we had a lot of people in industry and finance and banks and government, for that matter, stuffing their pockets with huge bonuses and salaries. I think that's likely to be the first thing to go, and I must say that I don't regret that one little bit. It was obscene and it had got out of hand. I'm all for a man being worthy of his hire. If you're worth 2 million salary, Yes, have £2 million salary, but don't stuff it with another £6 million worth of bonuses when things go wrong. You've got to take responsibility. It's the same as the media. Oh, what a blog this morning, but I'm sorry, I haven't woken up just mean and miserable. On the contrary, I'm very buoyant because my own little company, Media Mirador Television, and this little thing, which nobody is listening to at the moment, but we've got plans for, are doing quite well, thank you. They're on the up, but we're small, and we require people who don't want huge salaries. And we require, to some extent, people who want to do it because of the community. But there are an awful lot of organisations that can't work that way. So they've either got to change or fold. Does it mean a resurgence of the high street? And small shops? Can the supermarkets keep it up? I don't know. The whole thing at the moment is very, very fragile. And I think those people who say they do know, well, God bless you. I just hope that determination is absolutely right, because it's worrying the hell out of me, I can tell you. So I think what we better do is we better play a little bit of music and get me out of this mood. Let's see. Happy 6. Well, if it's got the word happy in it, it should be okay. Let's try it. A bit repetitive, but nonetheless jolly, very nice, happy 6. But it's not the 6th, it's the 22nd. And time has crawled by again. No, it hasn't, it just sped by. It was only January yesterday, and here it is, the middle of July already. It hasn't been a bad summer, but it hasn't been a good one either, and we could have done with that with lockdown. In fact, the spring was rather better than the summer, and that's often the case now. I tend to think that summer comes earlier and winter comes earlier, and we've not quite adjusted to that. We do things like go back to school in September. Perhaps what we've got to start doing is going back to school in August and quitting school in May. Perhaps... No. I cannot and will not allow Christmas to be moved. December the 25th is sacrosanct. I love that day. And I hope that this year, that because I'll be more settled, because I had to move just before Christmas last year, I hope I'll be more settled and that I will have a very happy Christmas this year. I've got it all planned in my mind. But then, what is lockdown going to do to things like Christmas? Already, we've had our bonfire celebrations in Lewes, which are the biggest in the world, on November the 5th, cancelled, or at least it will be pulled back if we're allowed to have it at all. But I doubt it. Things like late night shopping as a celebration will disappear. A lot of the things like a raft race and the proms in the park, all those things are going to disappear this year. Can they be resurrected? Will they be resurrected? Difficult to say. Just before all this stuff burst out, we were going to form a dining club with about a dozen of us in my hometown, so that we could just discuss matters of the world, because you do tend to get very parochial in a small town. You find very much that you talk about things on the high street, and not things that are going on in Belarus or Hong Kong, or for that matter even Westminster in London. And so this was going to be a little dining club, and we were going to name it the Hippo Club. And it was going to be named the Hippo Club because one of the very colourful characters, who I have to say supported slavery, but nonetheless was a man of considerable merit when it came to supporting things like astronomy, television. He supported Faraday's cage, and I'm talking about the 1700s, early 1800s. He supported all sorts of things, and his name was his name was Fuller, Mad Jack Fuller, and he was also known as Hippo because he grew, particularly through his extensive drinking habits, to be 28 or was it 22 stone. So he was known as the Hippo. So we're going to call it the Hippo Club after Jack Fuller. Now we're running out of time, would you believe? I can't believe it. After all the cock-ups this morning, we're running out of time. So I will tell you about Jack Fuller tomorrow. A very colourful character. One, undoubtedly, that would not go down well with the younger set. But then the younger set, if they want to watch television, don't think how he got there. Just do away with it. But if they've got any moral character at all, having pulled down statues and so on, what they'll do is smash every damn television set in sight. Can't see that happening, can you? Oh, I love to get people riled up on this programme in the morning, particularly when I'm feeling a bit morose about what's happening to the media. I'm going to actually play out this morning with a duo from Newhaven, in East Sussex. Dandelion Charm. Terrific people. I'll see you tomorrow, and I hope that I can get things straight and I won't be such a dope. Toodle pip.